Record 52, Side 1. Lesson number 52, the 52nd lesson. Practical section. The last lesson. We have been talking together for 52 weeks now, a full year, and it is inevitable that one feels some regret on reaching the final lesson. But we knew it was inevitable from the beginning, and trust only that the meeting has been a profitable one for you. As you know, English is not so formidable as perhaps you imagined at the outset. There are, of course, difficulties which are not so apparent in other languages, and many aspects of the language which are also simpler. There is no reason to give a resume here of all the work that has been done in the last 12 months, but rather to look towards the future. What is this effort you have put out on studying English to serve? Will you read English literature, which is rich in good books written during the last 300 to 500 years, or keep abreast of the present through the press by reading newspapers and journals? Some of you may have begun this course in order to be able to study English texts for university examinations, or to be able to speak to the people you meet in your work or socially. There are so many reasons for starting, and you have been sufficiently consistent, firm in your intention, as to keep right on to the end of the road. The idea of the course has never been to give complicated explanations, but always to aim at simplicity, so that students of all classes and levels of education might gain some profit by following the weekly lesson and be inspired to go on. Our weekly exercise at the end of each lesson aimed at giving you a little practice in applying through translation the rules learned in the lesson. In the last quarter of the course, you will have noticed short passages, some easy and others a little more difficult, taken from famous English novels. Reading them, you will, no doubt, have realized that in some cases it takes more than a course of English to put over all one must know to understand our writings. Listening to the radio or visiting, where possible, centers in your country which show English-speaking films give further proof of the need to continue your study now that the door has been opened. You are equipped, and we feel sure you have not neglected to study the course well, listening to the records time and time again, to make a more profound study, whether it be of a general or specialized nature. If you can, why not visit Great Britain? It would be an experience and will cost little more, less in many cases, than most people spend on a seaside holiday in their own country. Think what a wonderful experience it would be to try out what you have learned. Although you have heard the pronunciation of almost all the common vocabulary used by English people, you have not had the opportunity of gauging the reaction to your pronunciation of them, unless you are fortunate enough to number one or more English speakers among your friends. It is very important to practice speaking, as well as to understand when people speak to you in English. Sometimes the translations may not have met with your complete approval, but there were many considerations to be taken into account, and so literal, even if inadequate translations resulted. The alternative would have been long, complicated translations, which we feel would have been less clear and probably have made more difficult an idea which essentially was fairly simple. A further, more important reason is that the translation from or into English should be attempted only when the student has a certain familiarity with the fundamental idea of the English construction. Many students begin by learning to translate simple phrases and then go on to more complicated ones. This is inefficient in that the thought is always considered first in the mother tongue. One must think in English, or for that matter in any foreign language, in order to speak, write, and understand it properly. This is not easy, but neither are a great many of the things worth doing in this world. They call for effort, which is repaid by personal satisfaction. It is logical to expect a person to think in the language which he is speaking, unless he or she speaks very haltingly or very badly. If you must first prepare in your own language every word you wish to say in English, then you are not doing the right thing. You are giving yourself extra work, needless work. Your English will always lean on your mother tongue, and like a little dog that is never allowed out because it never has been, it will be a permanent dependent. This must not happen. If you have forgotten some of the lessons, some of the vocabulary, go back and listen again, repeating the exercise until you are certain you won't forget again. However, even if you imagine you know everything, it is wise to return and revise, practice, listen, study, and speak at every opportunity. Try to learn more all the time. Some of you have written from time to time during the year, asking about your particular difficulties. It has been one of the prime purposes of this course to clear up these points, and we trust our efforts have been sufficient to help you reach this goal. To teach you English using a simple, clear method and a larger amount of recorded material than has ever before been offered in a course of this kind has been our aim. Only you can tell us whether or not we have succeeded. For the future, we wish you even greater success in your study of this language, which, no matter the reason which at the outset decided you to take it up, is so full of interest and opens another window onto the world.
Side 2, Grammatical section. In this, the last lesson of the present course, we shall try to fill in the gaps that have been left here and there along the way. The small things, which in themselves are of no great importance, but expressions or forms which make themselves felt in current English speech. But is a simple word, which also, in conjunction with other words, has a variety of meanings. It is normally considered as a conjunction, as in, it was cold, but we were warm. But as an adverb has the same meaning as only. That man has but a year to live. They were but children. But as a preposition means except, save. They all have motorcycles but John. But meaning if not. But that the child was clever, her parents wouldn't keep her at school. But used with can or could to mean at least. He could but make an effort after all that's been done for him. You can but try, you may succeed. But for means without. But for the help you gave me, I should be a broken man today. They would have left me but for John's insistence. Nothing but means only. He told nothing but lies all the time. All but means very nearly, almost. They all but reached the summit. He was all but finished when the rescue party found him. but is also used as a relative pronoun, meaning who or which, not. The sentence, "There were no rooms but had been damaged in the fire," could be written, "There were no rooms which had not been damaged in the fire." Only, when used as an adverb, must be very carefully placed in the sentence in order to give the precise meaning desired. Here again are a few examples which will afterwards be explained to show what difference the position of this word can bring to the sentence. A. Only John told his brother this morning. B. John only told his brother this morning. C. John told only his brother this morning. D. John told his only brother this morning. E. John told his brother only this morning. F. John told his brother this morning only. In example A, the brother was told only by John, not by any other person. In B, John told his brother but did nothing else. In C, John told no other person, only his brother. In D, his only brother means that John had no more brothers, just that one. Only is used as an adjective in this example. In E, only this morning means as recently as this morning, this very morning. And lastly, in F, this morning only means that John did not tell his brother on any other morning, but simply that particular one. From these examples, it will be clear that only as an adverb must be used judiciously, carefully calculating its significance. Sometimes only is used to reinforce the meaning of just. He just missed the train is not quite so strong as he only just missed the train. He missed the train by the smallest possible margin is what the second example tells us. Only too pleased, only too glad, only too delighted are expressions meaning simply very pleased, very glad, very delighted. We shall be only too pleased to come. They were only too glad when the judge fined them £5. They had expected to be sentenced to a month's imprisonment. If only usually precedes an expression of desire, which is often enough impossible to realize. If only you could come for the weekend means, how I wish you could come for the weekend. Parentage. There is one point on parentage which we have not yet explained. A simple enough matter indeed, but it calls for some comment. When a man marries, his wife's parents become, respectively, his father-in-law and mother-in-law, and he their son-in-law. Her brothers and sisters are his brothers-in-law and sisters-in-law. Similarly, his wife is the daughter-in-law of her husband's parents, and they, of course, are her father and mother-in-law. If a child is unfortunate enough to lose a parent, and the remaining parent remarries, then the parent acquired is called either stepfather or stepmother, as the case may be. The child is a stepchild of the acquired parent, or more specifically, stepson or stepdaughter. 1. There is no special reason why this should be the last point to be discussed in our grammatical course, other than that it has not been spoken of before now. 1 is a numeral. One of us must go. 1 by 1 means one at a time, singly. They were ordered to come in 1 by 1. As a pronoun, it is an indefinite subject. One should listen very carefully to everything the records say. One never knows what may happen. It is used in contrast to other or another. One courageously accepted the situation, while the other was evidently trembling from fright. When it is desired to avoid repetition of a word, we often use one, or if plural, ones. He asked me for the red book, but wasn't interested in the green one. The exercise he gave us to do is not the same one as we did in class last week, is it?